also Lara, and I'm joined today by the head coach of Global Esports Elevated. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine.
It's good to see you. So, what are you up to these days?
I just went to Gyeongju to see some historic stuff, and then I'm going to go to Tokyo for a little bit of a vacation. But yeah, right now I'm kind of just watching Valorant still.
So, did you watch the playoff games?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about the teams that qualified?
I think mostly expected, except for Genji not making it potentially. Actually, Genji's out, right? They're fully out, I think.
They are out,
Yeah, I think that's the most surprising to me because I thought they were really good this year. But yeah, I think RQ is good. I knew PatrickWho was going to make it, and I think Talon's good as well. So.
Do you have any predictions for the grand finals?
No, not really. I kind of don't care, honestly, because like they're already in champions at that point. For me, I really wish that we actually had grand finals that mattered. Because like, yes, there is like a seeding element to it, but you're not really fighting for that much, in my opinion. So I think the fact that all the grand finals kind of don't have any real stakes to me is kind of boring. So I might not even watch it, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's surprising, but thanks for like sharing it. Let's go back in time to the moment when you got the offer from GE as an assistant coach. So before that, you were working for Ascent, and I'm curious, like when you got that offer, what were your thoughts? What were your expectations when you were joining Global Esports for 2025 season?
So I was working for Ascend as a content manager, like head of content. I had just finished coaching their VCL team as an assistant, and so it was cool working with NBS, who obviously won champions. So that was a good experience. But then they pulled out of Valorant just because the tier 2 scene in Europe was very rough, and I just started applying to like. At that point, it was VCT off season, and there was a lot of teams that had put out like open coaching applications. So I actually applied to like several different teams. And GE was the only one that gave me an offer. So I went with them, and yeah, I mean, I don't know, like obviously excited to do something that I've been trying to do for a while, but I am very confident in my abilities, and so I was kind of just like, yeah, like I feel like I should be able to do this, so let's go see what happens.
Okay, so I was curious, did you have any say in building the roster for the season, or was it Juvenile's work?
Yeah, I was definitely involved. Basically, they did like a huge tryout process, and I think they started out with like 250 people or something like that across Americas, Europe, and Asia. And I think when I came in, they were down to like 30, maybe, or something like that. So I watched the scrims, like the tryout scrims, and I gave my thoughts, and like I helped keep like a spreadsheet of stats. And I had some say. I don't know how much they actually considered my opinion or not, because at the time I wasn't actually even signed to the team yet. But they took my advice on some stuff, I think, but then also not on others. So I really don't know how much, the impact I really had. But I was there, and so essentially we ended up basically just picking like statistically the 5 best players. is kind of how it worked.
Okay.
But yeah.
And then it was like a little bit ruined for you because like Patrick couldn't get his visa on time, so you had to kind of think about like the new combination of players because that was not what you intended to do. So how much of a curveball it was for you?
I mean, it's obviously huge because even changing one player can really change like the entire makeup of the team, both from like the vibes and communication, but also every player is like a unique puzzle piece. And so nobody's going to fit exactly. Even if like their role is the same, it's not going to be quite the same team. So we had just practiced for like a month and a half, 2 months. And then all of a sudden we get the news that he can't come, he can't play. So throw away 2 months of practice. Yuditan had also tried out as a duelist originally, and we'd shifted him to Sentinel because PatrickWho could only play duelist, and Yuditan was open to trying out Sentinel. So it became kind of natural to let him try duelist then, but then that's another change. So basically, we just became a new team after like practicing for a month and a half. We played kickoff with Darion, and Yuditan was the duelist, and then PatrickWho got his visa. But we practiced with Darion and Yuditan for months again, and then 2 weeks before the season started, we get notice that PatrickWho can play. So again, we take all of our experience as a team, and then more practice, and again, throw it away, right? Because he didn't practice with it at all when he didn't have his visa, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we had to shift again back to Yuditan on Sentinel, PatrickWho and Duelist. And so we basically remade the team like 3 times. Like initial roster, the new roster, back to the original roster, but now new. So we really didn't have like any good prep going into the season.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough.
Yeah, so I don't want to go into too many details about like the actual situation, but basically like you wake up one morning and, oh, okay, well now we have a situation to deal with. I sort of like let the team know after, trying to think like what's the best way to put this. When it became clear that there might be like a bigger problem and there might be some like changes that happened, you know, I basically just told the management like, I've been doing a lot of work already, so I'm ready. If you guys need me to step up, if you want to find somebody else, that's also fine. But I believe that I can do this. Yeah, and then obviously the suspension happened, and I'm the head coach now. I just kind of like called a team meeting, and I was like, "Listen, guys, like this is a situation. Like I'm gonna keep running the team, essentially like how I have been doing things. I think there were a few changes that I made right away, which was to instill a little bit more discipline in the team. I think I didn't handle certain things quite as well as I could have, in terms of like being a little too harsh, because like I was always a little bit of like usually there's like a good cop, bad cop kind of dynamic, and I tended to be a little bit more of like the good cop, and now needed to shift into being like the bad cop a little bit more. I think I might have been a little bit too much of the bad cop, but also at the same time, we were in a situation where like a lot of the structure seemingly was kind of collapsing for the team. So I kind of needed to be a little bit more like dictatorial in how I was running things, which I don't know if was the best thing. Maybe it would have been better to be a little bit more like soft leadership. I don't know. It was a weird situation.
So
Yeah.
basically what I wanted also to know, how much the situation has ruined your stage 1 performance.
How much did it ruin it? We definitely had a lot of other problems as a team, but I think the chaos probably made all those problems sort of like more problematic. If we didn't have that situation, I still think we probably would have been an average team, but it certainly didn't help.
Before stage 2, you changed the roster again. So, and you picked up Yoman and Van. So I was curious, why them among all other players?
So we're going to keep coming back to visas being a thing. So like, I'll even speak about Darion. When we found out that we couldn't play with PatrickWho, we had like 2 weeks or like 3 weeks or whatever before kickoff started, and it's not possible to get a visa in that amount of time. So it has to be somebody who can just immediately come to Korea, which means Koreans, Japanese, and Singaporean, and that's basically it. And so then when it came time to make roster moves between stage 1 and stage 2, we had 4 days or 5 days to make a roster because we had to start applying for the Japanese visa for stage 2 playoffs. Otherwise, we couldn't have, if we had made playoffs and gone to the finals, we couldn't have gone. So in those 4 days, we have to then basically, again, only consider Korean, Japanese, Singaporean players. Those are the only people that can come and go as they please, basically. So part of it was just that we could get them into the country quickly, because obviously Ban had already been here and had his work visa, and he is Korean by heritage as well. And then Yoman lived here and also had already done all the VC paperwork. So that's part of the equation. And then the other part of the equation is that we just wanted to support Ida-san better, because while he speaks English and has played on English-speaking rosters basically his entire career, even in China, it was just going to be helpful to have like an older, experienced Korean voice that can kind of help mentor him a little bit and make sure that he understands like what we want out of him. And yeah, kind of just like bridge the communication gap a little bit. And so we actually ended up initially considering Ban or Yoman, and then maybe finding another piece. But because everything was so rushed, it was just like, okay, they both said yes. Okay, cool, we'll get them both. So that's why we ended up kind of having like 3 initiator players, and then our roles were all over the place.
That's definitely a challenge to keep them all in the roster. So how well do you think you managed that situation, and how comfortable did the guys feel?
In some sense, we did a very good job, because there were definitely a lot of initial issues, because all 3, Crystal, Yoman, and Ban, have like a lot of calling experience. Even though Ban was not the IGL of talent, he called a lot. And so we had 3 like very loud voices on the team that all wanted to be talking all the time. And so we had to like get them to work together, which took several kind of difficult conversations of like, you need to not talk right now and listen to this, stuff like that. But at the same time, I would also say that we did a terrible job, because I think our team synergy was not that great. So the fact that we were a functioning team to some extent was good. Like, it means that we did a good job, but also had we done a better job, we probably would have been a better team.
Yeah, when you were playing like the first matches on stage 2, you showed a lot of potential, and I was like, okay, this is like Revive's team, looking good. Yeah, if they continue playing like this, I think it can work.
Yeah.
But then something like,
Well, I also think that our initial win over RQ was not real. And what I mean by that is like, they had just come off of like a month of travel and a new meta and new maps, and they had like 2 days of practice.
yeah.
And if you actually go back and watch our game, a lot of the stuff that we're doing is we're just shooting them better. Like, we hit the site that they had 3 or 4 people on, like maybe half of our attack rounds, and we just outshot them in a lot of situations. So like, yes, a lot of potential from our skill, but I don't think that we were macro better than them necessarily, except for in a certain couple of scenarios. And like, we were better than them macro-wise on Corrode, which was a new map that they had basically ever played. And then we also had a few sort of anti-things, because they'd shown a lot of stuff on Haven. I think if you had given them as much time as we had, I don't know if we would have won.
In general, I remember asking you about it after the last match, and you gave me a reply, but maybe now, after some time went on. So I was curious, if you look back, what do you think was the main reasons that the team didn't show like the performance you were striving for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to kind of repeat the answer that I gave you in the scrum, which is just inconsistency all over the place. I think the biggest problems were obviously just like the ever-changing nature of the team, and also just kind of like an inconsistent level of professionalism and like attitude on behalf of the players, to some extent. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. As a coach, like, I don't want to shift blame really to the players, because at the end of the day, it is my responsibility. But I think I probably should have demanded more of them, both in terms of like the perfectionism during practice, and also maybe just the amount of time and work that we were putting in. Because like we worked really, really hard and we practiced a lot, but I don't think we necessarily got as much as we should have out of that time. And so, yeah, I think like it kind of even just showed up like from map to map, day to day. Sometimes everybody's really engaged in practice, sometimes not. Sometimes we show up on stage and we've got a really good map, and then we have a 5-minute break, and then people are just not focused. And I don't honestly have all the answers because if I did, we probably would have been a better team. But I think had we not sort of lost our focus between RQ and Secret, we would be in a totally different place. Obviously, just like win-loss, we would have been in playoffs if we had just done that. But I think if we had started out 2-0, there's a very good chance that we just beat Gen G, because I think we, at that point, understand, oh, we can just win, right? But once we had that moment where we beat a team, we kind of knew that RQ was a little bit like a wounded animal at that point. And then we had Team Secret where we should have beaten them, but then we didn't. And then we had Gen G where we should have beaten them, and then we didn't. And actually, I went back and looked at it because I was just trying to figure out like where did the season really kind of take a turn for the worse. And it was after the Gen G game, where if you actually look at our scrim results, we went from being like, you know, a positive win rate team in scrims, even though we were only scrimming good teams, to I think we had like a 30% scrim win rate between Gen G and Nonshin, which is really bad. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I just thought we were kind of like, you know, dealing with issues, or trying to fix. Don't even really have time to like take the zoomed out view of like what's actually happening. But definitely something kind of happened, I think, mentality wise for the team.
So obviously you have such a big experience in like big sports, not only in esports. When something like this happens, like the team loses confidence, like the mentality is not on point, the discipline is not great. So how do you usually work with the team? How do you fix it?
I mean, when I was playing like baseball and when I was playing traditional sports, a lot of the times it's not even up to the coach. It's like how badly the players want it. Like when I was playing baseball in college, we were really bad the first year that I was there, and we got yelled at a lot by the coach, and he was very like disciplinarian. And then the second season, a lot of my teammates and myself were kind of just like, well, we don't really like the coach, so we're just going to focus on hanging out, becoming friends as teammates, and we were much better than you. So sometimes it's just the players. I think, you know, we had some conversations as a team, and specifically like towards the end, you know, I believe on putting pressure on players. I think they need to understand, like, you can't really like lie to players, right? Oh, this game doesn't matter, right? The non-ship game. Obviously, this is the entire season. I'm not just gonna be like, you know, it's just another game, guys. It's not another game. They know that, right? I feel like that doesn't really endear you to them. It doesn't really give you any credibility if you kind of like try to soften the blow. So just honest, you know, like, you guys all have dreams and aspirations. You want to prove that you're better than everybody. You believe that you're better than other players that are maybe doing better than you. You want to make money as a player. Whatever your motivation is, it's like the path to realizing that is beating this team. And then we didn't. For the DRX game, I mean, everybody was kind of like defeated at that point, you know, and we're kind of just going through the motions in practice a little bit, even myself included. And our practice was going pretty poorly. And, you know, I wasn't taking it lightly because obviously I don't want to go embarrass myself against DRX in the last game of the season. And at one point, MC, he just called a team meeting and he was like, you guys are going to embarrass yourselves on stage unless you actually like focus up. And, you know, the two of us just kind of like made them realize like it doesn't. This DRX game has no like. There's no weight to it because we're already out of playoffs. But every single one of you may never play on stage again. Like this might be the last VCT game you ever experience in your life.
Yeah.
So do you want a good memory or a bad one, basically? And so we obviously ended up losing, but I think we played a lot better against DRX than we did.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So I think that message did kind of sink in a little bit. Obviously, we still had lots of problems. We lost the game, but yeah, I don't know. I think you just kind of have to tell people the truth most of the time when you're a coach.
Okay, yeah. Do you have any idea, like, moving forward, how the team's gonna look, what you're gonna do?
No, I don't. I don't know if I'll be back. I don't know what players will be back. It's too early. I'm sure roster moves will happen.
If you were, like, doing it, though, can you share with us, like, what players do you consider, like, the core players on the team?
No, I don't really want to even speculate on that because, like, at the end of the day, part of it's not my decision. Part of it's going to come down to the management. Part of it's going to come down to contract. Some teams might come and offer a bunch of money for a player, and it might be in esports business best interest to do that, right?
Yeah.
Also, I think there's like a few different versions of the team that you could put together as a core. You know, maybe these 2 players or maybe these 3 players, and maybe you can't have both. It might even just be 1 player. I don't know. I've made my recommendations to GE, and I've also given them a couple different options of who I think I would build around. And some of it's like most of the players, some of it's only a couple. And I think with the pieces, obviously we showed a lot of potential this year, just like individually. So there's lots of good, talented players. And so then it just kind of becomes like how you shape the roster around whatever decision ends up being made.
Okay, interesting. So I guess we'll have to wait till off season and wait for official announcements.
Yeah.
Another question I wanted to ask you is a little bit spicy. So Global Esports hasn't made it into like finals or playoffs throughout the whole history of participation in VCT and has made a lot of roster changes. Do you think that it was one of the reasons why the results haven't been great? And do you think that like probably the team needs to commit to one roster, like and stick to it, and then there will be better results?
Yes and no. I mean, I definitely think that having some consistency is important and building around gradually, like pieces. Should they have stuck with a specific roster? No. I mean, I think the rosters probably did need to change, and our roster probably doesn't need to change to like find the right combination of players. But starting from scratch is obviously very hard because instead of kind of like having a brick on your foundation and then adding another one next to it and then another one on top, what you end up doing is you're basically just like gambling and like hopefully these 5 players work out, and then next year hopefully these five players work out, and they never do, right? No roster is just 5 players, no changes, we're good. That's never happened ever. There always needs to be some change, but it's always harder. You know, if you just think about it, like if every player has a 20% chance, right? 5 players adding up to 100%. I don't think you're ever going to get like the correct combination right away. You're always going to have to like sub 1 out, try another one, sub 2 out, try another 2, and maybe then all of a sudden it adds up to like being a coherent team.
If we are talking about like VCT Pacific and compare it to other regions competitively, so what are like the traits that singles out this region from other regions?
I think Pacific has the best mechanical players out of any region.
So basically APAC, all players are cracked.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I think the mechanical skill is more highly valued here than anywhere else. Obviously, every region has good players, but I also think that we tend to be one of the more innovative regions as well. because you have, you know, the likes of PaperX, and then you've got Gen G sort of pioneering their own stuff, and T1 kind of did their own thing. We did some unique stuff as well. Whereas I feel like Americas as a region tends to be a little bit more like copy what is working. And EMEA has like copy Fnatic, basically. And then like, obviously this year, Liquid kind of did their own stuff as well. And then China is like, I don't know. China's kind of just their own little microcosm. But yeah, I think I've been pretty vocal in saying that I think APAC is the best region. I don't necessarily know if we have like the best team. Obviously, PaperX won the last Masters, but I don't know if I would necessarily say they're the best team in the world. They're definitely top 3, I would say. But I think overall strength of like the overall like roster of teams, I think APAC is clearly the best. Like I think you could probably put like our 7th or 8th place team into Americas or EMEA, and they would probably be like top 4.
Invest. Another topic I wanted to ask you about is we obviously have like Korean teams, Japanese teams, we have SIA teams. So in kickoff we had like 3 Korean teams in finals, and now we have like 3 SIA teams. What do you think about the balance between like different regions inside of Pacific?
Yeah, so I think coming into this year, my perspective on the region was that we'd actually come down a little bit from our peak, because I thought Gen G last year was like about as good of a team as you're going to see like in Valorant history. But I thought that the floor had raised a lot, and so the region overall had become more competitive, where there wasn't like one team above everybody else, and everybody was kind of like in the middle of the pack. And that kind of, I think, is what happened. I do think that the Korean teams may end up struggling going forward a little bit, just because, especially, I guess, Nongshim is going back to Ascension. But if they were to have stayed, then you'd have 4 teams basically all trying to cannibalize each other for talent. And I think that's one of the reasons that the Korean teams kind of came down a little bit. Obviously, at kickoff, they did very well. I think part of the reason is because most of them had a good basis to build from, right? Most of them had like a core of very experienced players that had worked together in the past, and there was like no turnover in terms of their staff. Some of the other teams are also fairly consistent. Obviously, PaperX and RQ and these teams, they ended up doing relatively well also. But I think going forward, you're not going to see like one Korean team be the best, because all of them are competing for the same talent. So you're not going to get a Korean super team necessarily, because everybody wants that, and because Korean language is very kind of, it's like a niche basically. Those players can kind of only be in those teams to some extent. Obviously, some of them can speak English as well and can function in other teams, but it kind of sections them off, but then they're also kind of like all fighting for like the best players at the same time.
Okay. And speaking of GE, since like the org is like Indian, so, and there are a lot of opinions about like the GE, even if they can't find like the best players in India, that they kind of responsible for like developing the region and then like supporting the Indian players. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I tend to agree that representation is very important. I think we've kind of seen this in Valorant already, where like early on there was a lot of, don't let the Pacific teams come to Masters because all the best teams are in Americas and EMEA, and now look at the region, right? Same kind of thing where, the Japanese teams are bad, like get rid of their slots, right? But then they have like one of the best fan bases in the game. So if you had cut them out because of their results, then you lose that representation, which could go on in a couple of years to be very important.
Yeah.
I think the Indian Valorant scene, honestly, I'm not really that tapped in to like South Asia. I do think there is some validity to like, one of the responses is like, well, look at, their Challengers League. Are any of the top players in the league Indian? And the answer is usually no. It's usually like imports from Indonesia or Philippines or whatever that are like the top players. But I don't think that means that the players are bad. I just kind of think that maybe the ship has sailed a little bit on being the representative of the Indian players, just because Riot has kind of made it very clear at this point, 3 or 4 years in now, that the only thing that really matters is winning. Look at how they shifted like the budget away from content for the teams to, you get an extra share of champions money, right? So you have to win, essentially. And I don't think it's necessarily that like a team couldn't win fielding Indian talent, because there are good players out there for sure. But I think at this point, it's kind of too late to like really lean into that, because there is definitely a gap developmentally between the Indian League and sort of the other challengers leagues. And part of that is due to ping, part of that is due to experience. And also another thing that is really important to remember is the dreaded word, the visa process. Like the Indian passport is very weak. And so it's hard to get them into Korea. So even if you do field an Indian team or even a couple Indian players, there's no guarantee that they're even going to be able to get here. And if they do get here and you qualify for an event, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to go to that event. And so
this is also like a little bit misplacing responsibility, because like if we have like very developed tier 2 scene in India, I think it would be much easier for VCT team to pick up talents from there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the Challengers League in India, like there are some good teams and some good players, and we've scrimmed a couple of them during the season. But then another thing that always has to be part of it is like the VCT teams probably are not going to scrim the Indian League, because most of them can only play on Singapore, and Singapore is bad ping. And so if you're a tier 1 team, you basically never want to scrim above like 40 ping. And the Indian teams are either going to scrim you on like 90 ping in Japan, or you're going to have to scrim on worse ping in Singapore. And most of the VCT teams are not going to take that trade. And so it's very hard for them to even like be exposed to the talent. So there might be players that are VCT level, but nobody's going to play them. So they're never going to see them. I think kind of what it takes is for just one person to break through. And I do think that it would be nice for GE to like have that representation, but I just think there's so many roadblocks to it that it's very hard for them to do that and also still focus on their goals as an org. But yeah, like in an ideal world, we would have Indian players on the team. Like, I think that's just kind of, in an ideal world, that would be great.
Okay, that's interesting. So we'll be looking forward to what happens to GE team, and we hope to see you back in VCT next year, hopefully, because I really enjoyed having like interviews with you throughout this year. You're so eloquent, and I think that like it's very interesting to hear more about like what's going on inside of the teams. So, any words to GE fans or your personal fans before we wrap up the interview?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's been watching me since Dota, what are you doing with your life? Go watch something else. And then GE fans, I mean, sorry, like, we definitely wanted to do better. And we know that, like, the gravity of the situation of, like, the team needs to do well.
Yes.
So we definitely tried, and we'll continue to try.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this interview with us, Elevated, and we hope to see you next year, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.